Pour yourself a cold one.
Let's drink 'em, huh?
And listen to Ross Tucker break down the top college prospects on another tasty edition of the College Draft.
Yeah, it's Daddy Soda time here on the College Draft podcast presented by DraftKings. I'm Ross Tucker, America's, wow, I kind of confused those two things right there because DraftKings is America's #1 rated sportsbook app. But then I was already moving into introducing myself. So I said, I'm Ross Tucker, America's #1 podcast host. Thank you very much. Listen, you just roll with it. I could have just gone with it, but I'm one of those people that I just admit when I'm losing my train of thought or make a mistake. It doesn't matter. What matters is that you've come to the right place if you love college football and or if you love the NFL draft or both. Because every week for the next 4 more weeks, we are going to go over the best NFL prospects in the biggest conferences to get you ready for college football in 2021 and start to whet your appetite for the 2022 NFL Draft. I am Ross Tucker at Ross Tucker NFL on social media. At Ross Tucker Pod is where you can find all of our shows. We do have a YouTube page, youtube.com/Ross Tucker NFL if you'd like to watch all kinds of other podcasts, the Fantasy Feast, Even Money, College Draft, which is this one, Ross Tucker Football Podcast, Andrew Brandt's Business of Sports. We got a bunch. The star of this show is Emory Hunt. He is the man with the plan. He is the dude that is not rude. He knows everybody. And of course, he knows the ACC guys. Last week, Emory, we did the American guys, which was cool. And there were some good guys, especially Desmond Ridder and Ahmad Gardner. But I've been waiting all week to get to the ACC because I really want to hear how good you think these quarterbacks, in particular, Sam Howell from UConn, really is. Now, I'll say this. You can check out Emory on Twitter at FBallGamePlan on Twitter, Football Game Plan on YouTube, footballgameplan.com/2022 draft guide. Start to get your pre-orders in now because there's going to be more prospects than we've ever had before, and Emory is all over it. Is it tough, Emory? I didn't ask you this last week. Is it tough to rank these guys like 1 through 10, or is it you already gave them a grade and the grade is what it is and you just do it?
No, it's kind of tough to rank them right now because some guys have a little bit more game experience than others, but you kind of have a good framework of, where these guys are as prospects. And to be completely honest, I feel like, what you've put on film for 2.5, even 3 years, in some cases, you kind of know what you are. And you rarely see like significant jumps in evaluation. At that point, if you're making significant jumps, it's probably more justification analysis than actual analysis. You just seeing what you want to see. That's why I also kind of limited to 3 games: best game, worst game, best possible matchup, or most intriguing matchup, and go from there, because you don't want to start to see what you want to see in terms of watching these guys. So I always chuckle when folks say, I watch at least 8 or 9 games of a prospect. Like, bro, you just tell me you like the prospect and move on, right? So that's all that is, man. And but now it's tough to really get a hard ranking because a lot can happen, but you have a pretty good idea of how these guys are as prospects.
I didn't know that, Emory. So you watched 3 games. Tell me the 3 games.
The best game of, the statistically best game they have, the worst game they have, and the best possible matchup. So let's say, for instance, to use Trevor Lawrence, right? You want to watch, the Citadel game because he's going to put up ridiculous numbers. And when you're watching the best game of a prospect, you want to watch at, okay, what can they potentially be at their best? When all things are clicking, what's their ceiling? And so then you watch their worst game, which to me was the game against Ohio State. And you want to see how well they fight through adversity, how well they overcome mistakes, how well do they get out of their own way if things are not going well early on. and you learn a lot about a person's makeup in their worst game. And then the best matchup. Okay, who has the best secondary, the most athleticism at secondary, and in the secondary. So then you go and watch, let's say, a Louisville or Florida State or a UNC or Virginia, Notre Dame. You watch those, one of those games. Who has the top tier athletes that can match athlete for athlete at the skill position, and you go from there. So that way you get a good, well-rounded view in 3 games of a prospect.
I love it. I that makes plenty of sense to me. And yeah, when I hear these guys, I watched every snap. I guess I understand that, and I appreciate the thoroughness, but you are going to sort of end up just seeing the same thing over and over again.
And if you're in, again, we're in the media, Ross. Why are we watching 8 or 9 games? For us, we just need to know enough about a player, and for the most part, what we see, we can tend to project rather well and are able to articulate about. So it's not our job on the line to know whether or not this guy is going to be a bust or a great player. It's our job to know what can he do, what can he do, where can he improve, and how he fits into his current situation, so we could talk about him throughout a 3-hour broadcast. And I think a lot of people don't understand. We're on the media side. We don't have the medicals. We don't have the psychological background, all that stuff like that. We just need to know enough about these players. I think that's why the 3 games, for me at least, is perfect.
Let's get to the ACC. And, it's so interesting because other than Clemson, there haven't been a lot of other great seasons by other ACC schools. They produced a lot of NFL talent, though. A lot of NFL talent out of the ACC without maybe winning as many games as you would think maybe perhaps they should. I recently saw where Dane Brugler, who's a guy we've had on the show, you and I are friends with and fan of, he ranked the quarterbacks for the Athletic, and he had Sam Howell from UNC number 1, and I guess some AFC GM said right now that's the only first-round quarterback on our board. You have him ranked as the best prospect in the ACC, Emory. Tell me about Sam Howell and what you saw from him.
I just like how he plays, man. He's just a fun watch, in terms of everything just seems like it's going well for him. He finds a way to make a way. If things are shut off early, he'll try to scramble, and sometimes it's to his fault. Very Baker Mayfield-like, and I think that's why you see that comp thrown out there for him. So I just think that for me, Howell is someone that has been consistent. I know the people will point to the offense, but you still have to be consistent within that offense. He protects the football enough. He's able to buy time with his footwork and find guys downfield. He's not afraid to take a chance with some shots over the middle of the field or deeper down the field. And he seems to fight through adversity through a game. And we saw last year, like, they played in probably a season's worth of entertaining games, meaning that they had big leads, lost big leads, had to fight back to win a game. And so when you're going back and forth like this, you're going to have your ebbs and flows. But you saw him do a lot. And I think that's why we have a lot of tape on Howell. And just from a consistency standpoint, to me, he was the most consistent out of the ACC quarterbacks.
I mean, I know you haven't looked at everybody yet, but we know about Spencer Rattler and Carson Strong at Nevada, Spencer Rattler at Oklahoma. There are others out there. Do you think Howell is the best quarterback in this draft right now, or are you not there yet?
Not there yet. Right now, I think Malik Willis is the best quarterback in this draft out of Liberty. Makes it an 11-on-11 game, dynamic, strong arm, 4.4 speed. So the upside is tremendous. And if he's able to build on what he did last year with Liberty, they were almost ACC champs. They were a missed field goal or extra point away from beating NC State, and they would have beaten 3 ACC teams. So right now, Malik Willis out of Liberty is my number 1 quarterback. And I do think when we look at Sam Howell, he may not be the top 5 talent. He may be someone that can be a good bus driver for a team. And I think that's where I am on Sam Howell. He may not be a top tier prospect, but a good quarterback definitely someone you want running your offense.
You know, I did the U.S. Army Bowl, Emory, like 4 or 5 years. And I think the last one I did, because they didn't have one last year, I didn't do the one the year before that, was Sam Howell's year. Sam Howell and Spencer Rattler's year. So I saw these kids in person. I talked with them. 2 totally different body types. I mean, Sam Howell, he almost looked like a linebacker or a fullback. You know, he's 6'1", was 220, 225. That's pretty thick. Like, I don't want to, he wasn't dumpy, but he had like wider hips and just shorter and squattier, but he had the width you're looking for. Usually if a quarterback's 220, they're like 6'3", 6'4". He was like 6'1", 220, 225. So I don't know what he is now, but I remember thinking, man, this is the guy that Florida State and UNC were fighting over. He just had a very atypical quarterback body.
He built like a Tecmo Bowl quarterback.
Yeah. He's squatty. He's squatty. He's strong. Like he's thick, but he looks like, if you told me that dude was a fullback or a linebacker, I'd be like, okay.
Right. He has that college frat boy body too, where like, you know, he's not fat, but he got some size on him. Like, you're not gonna move him off the spot. That's for sure. Not gonna push him out the frat house for sure. Like, he's not an easy toss out. Definitely.
All right, so we talked about this next guy a couple times last year. I called a couple of his games at Houston in 2019. D'Eriq King from Miami, absolutely a dynamic athlete. And I guess the question will be, he's one of those guys that, at least for a while, Emory, they were still saying, is he a quarterback or is he a guy that should pull a Greg Ward and move to another position?
I think he showed last year that he's definitely the quarterback. The leadership he showed at Miami and making some of these throws, I was more impressed with him last year at Miami than I ever was with him at Houston. Houston, he was more of a scrambler, a guy that can beat you with his legs. His arm was a bit erratic, but at Miami, we saw him be more consistent, throwing over the middle of the field, dropping those deep, corner routes in the bucket on a consistent basis, being able to play above the X's and O's on third downs and inside the red zone. The book on him, and it's a big, thick book, will be the medical history. He's been injured a lot, and that's not what you want to hear for someone who relies on athleticism, because at the end of the day, if you're not going to be out there, then it kind of limits your opportunities for a team to take you so high. But the football IQ, the leadership intangibles, you like that about King. Now I just hope that, he's able to come back healthy once again, stay healthy for a full season, and then go into the offseason and showcase the growth he's made as a quarterback. So right now, I probably will feel comfortable taking someone like King in a third round, based off the injury concerns, but you like the 1 year jump from Houston to Miami. I thought that was significant for him last year.
What about your number 3 guy? Speaking of injury history, Justin Ross from Clemson, who had about as good of a freshman year as I think a wide receiver has ever had, including in the national championship game, tearing up Alabama, and the dude's from Alabama. I mean, I don't even know. I hope they had police security at his parents' house in Alabama after what he did to them in the national championship game. Can you imagine that? Like, we know what the state of Alabama's like. He goes to Clemson and then kills the Crimson Tide in the national championship game.
Yeah, and if you're in North Alabama, how you let him get out the state, right? You're the last line of defense. Like, you can't let him get out the state. You're at the top of the state. You can't let him get out the state. Somebody got to grab him. But you're right. He goes to Clemson. He balls out, and then he has a neck injury. And you always leery when you think about neck injuries. And I can only imagine, the pain or concern in a highly contact sport like football when you're talking about neck. So hopefully he's able to go back out there, play well, and regain that status. But man, you talk about someone that athletically checks the boxes already, can pluck the football out of the air. He plays like he's, advanced already. When he was a freshman, he was playing like he was a redshirt senior. And so I think he is already ready to play in the NFL. I just want to see him go out there, get back to what he was, show some athleticism, show some speed, show those great hands to pluck the ball out of the air, and take it easy the rest of the way so that way you can get to the NFL.
Emory, you always say this, and I love it. There's certain positions at certain schools where they're just kind of a made guy for you, right? And that seems to be Boston College and offensive linemen. They have put a lot of offensive linemen out over the years. Your 4th and 5th ranked pro prospects in the ACC are both offensive linemen from Boston College. Let's start with number 4 ranked player, Zion Johnson from BC.
Yeah, he's their left tackle. Really good footwork. I like his footwork. I love the fact that he's a strong guy. So he's going to stay in the fight. When you combine that with footwork, that makes you a really good tackle prospect. I want to see him be a little bit more aggressive with his hands. Sometimes he's a little bit too patient. And if you're a savvy edge rusher, you could probably speak to this, Ross. When someone's a little bit too hesitant with their hands, it allows the defender to get their hands on them first. And if you win the hands first battle, you're now in the fight the entire doggone rep. And I see that a lot with him. But when he's able to gain control early in the rep, he's dominant and you won't get to the quarterback. But I want to see him be more consistent and getting those hands on a defensive lineman first within the beginnings of the rep.
Then you got Alec Lindstrom, Chris Lindstrom's brother at Boston College as well.
Family business, right? And Lindstrom was, to me, a top-tier talent at the position. I gave him a 90 grade. So that's like Pro Bowl grade for me when he came out of Boston College. His brother is just as good. And when you look at a lot of the big runs from Boston College last year, they're coming right down Main Street. So he's getting guys right off the ball and clearing a space for the running back. So he's getting the run. He's good in the run game. You're not going to walk him back in pass pro. So he's able to anchor down and then redirect. He's a solid overall prospect. I have no issues in taking centers in the first round. If you are a good blocker, especially guard, center guard, I'm probably valuing you higher than guys that are out on the edge. Because if you're a good guard, center guard, that's where offense happens. And any quarterback worth his salt can step up into a pocket if you're beat on the edges. And any running back would love to have dominance on the interior. And Lindstrom is a dominant interior lineman.
So we know where to go for a wide receiver. Clemson's a pretty good place for that. Boston College is a pretty good place to get an offensive lineman. The best place to find someone if you need to hire someone, LinkedIn. All right, Emory, let's get to number 6. Bubba Bolden, the safety from Miami. He was another U.S. Army Bowl guy.
And he's another one that fits that prototype of, guy that physically looks the part. He can play. He has good instincts, instinctual player. He's a good hitter. And one that tracked out rather well going from high school All-American to college. A lot of times guys get lost in the shuffle, especially when you talk about the U.S. Army game and, the All-American game. But, man, he was kind of like plug and play at Miami, and I think he's going to be one of these plug and play guys moving on to the next level. I like his game, love how he plays. Now, I'm glad to see him back out there this year.
I'm a big fan of the name Bubba.
Right.
I just think Bubba's an awesome name.
I mean, you can't go think about it. You have Bubba Bolden, who we're talking about. Yeah, Bubba Franks. Bubba McDowell was a good one for the Houston Oilers. So, yeah, we're 3 for 3 right now with Bubbas. Like, if you're named Bubba, you're probably going to be a good football player. And Rerun was nicknamed Bubba in What's Happening, and he was a great dancer. Shirley called him Bubba. So, again, we're undefeated with Bubba. Bubba, you're right, is a really good name.
Here's the thing. If you name your kid Bubba, they better not be a chump.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, you name your kid Bubba, like, they better be ready to roll. Like, there's certain names, like, you name your kid Bubba or Rocky or whatever, like, they better, like, something comes with that name, okay?
Bubba Gump too, threw it out there as well.
Yes, Bubba Gump from Forrest Gump. Bubba Gump shrimp. Love
Shout
it.
out to
All right.
Brian.
Let's get to our first running back from the ACC. Wait a minute. Is this right? Does UNC have another running back?
Via transfer, Ty Chandler. Remember, he was at Tennessee last year.
That's right. Because I know last year with Javonte Williams and Michael Carter, I'm like, how does UNC have another running back?
Yeah, and it's Ty Chandler who, I liked him at Tennessee. But again, I understand transferring out. It was a mass exodus leaving, Tennessee last year by a lot of prospects. And Brian puts Bubba Smith and Bubba Watts. So again, undefeated with Bubba.
There's got to be some Bubbas out there that haven't done squat with their lives, by the way. We just never heard of them.
There's no bad Bubbas. We're proving this science right here. Chandler is good. Chandler is a one-cut downhill runner. He was actually one of the bright spots, him and Eric Gray, the two running backs for Tennessee that are now playing elsewhere. Chandler is at UNC while Gray is at Oklahoma. So Chandler, good interior runner, helps keep the offense on pace, alleviates a lot of pressure off of Sam Howell, and will help keep North Carolina's offense humming. While they break in these newer receivers, the run game they don't have to worry about. And he's going to be another one of these guys that he's a solid, one-cut downhill guy that runs well between the tackles, that breaks good tackles. And we know in this offense, he's going to have an opportunity to showcase his speed, his elusiveness, his flair for the big play. So I love him transferring from Tennessee, where there's a lot of questions, going to a situation where he's going to get the football, he's going to be dynamic, and that's in North Carolina.
The next guy is ranked way too low just based on his last name. That's the right tackle from UNC, Jordan Tucker.
Well, you can't go wrong with guys that play offensive lineman, last name named Tucker. I'm pretty sure we could, we just proved science with Bubba. Like, there's great evidence for Tucker being the last name. But I watched a lot of UNC last year, right? Because when you're watching UNC, you watch the running backs. Obviously, there were two prospects. Then you watch the receivers, right? Then for using my methodology about watching 3 games, let's say if I'm watching a defensive prospect, well, one of the games you want to see, the best possible matchup, is against North Carolina. So I've seen a lot of North Carolina offense, and I thought this tackle, Tucker, was outstanding, on the right side. So you're seeing some good pass rushers nowadays coming off the right side, and I just thought that he was able to do it rather well. And a lot of the runs that we saw, these guys able to bounce outside, they didn't bounce him outside to the left side. They bounced him outside to the right side because Tucker was vacating space, and he's athletic. He's climbing well. I think the hand usage or placement can be a little bit better, but athletically, he is what you want as an NFL tackle.
Number 9, a wide receiver from NC State, Emeka Emezie.
We've been talking about him for a while. He was someone that came into last season as a wide receiver to watch. And I just love how he was able to be their number 1 option. They have 2 good running backs, too. It's more than 10 prospects that we know in the ACC, but he was a good receiver. It's going to be interesting as they're breaking in new quarterback play once again, as Hockman, I believe, transferred out. So it's tough, but he's someone that wins outside the numbers. He's able to make plays above the rim as a bigger wide receiver, and he's one of the more consistent options you'll see. Probably more of a mid-round guy, but you like his ability to win in those contested catch situations.
Last but definitely not least, really curious to get your opinion. I remember you talking about him a couple times last year. He elected to stay in school. That's Kenny Pickett, the quarterback from Pitt.
I like watching Pickett play, and I have it on my calendar to go to another Pitt game. And it seems like I always get the Thursday night Pitt North Carolina game. Every year that's the one I'm always able to go to. So I'll be there this year in November, and you can probably talk to this, Ross. Best press box food wise, probably in the league, and because that Pittsburgh press box at Heinz Field, the spread and the amount of food, and I don't normally eat hot dogs, but I will always have hot dogs at Heinz Field. There's so much good food there. But I'm always watching Kenny Pickett throw the football. It's just something about him. He's like, I call him like a point guard type passer. where it's like he's leading a fast break. He has no fear where he's throwing the football. Good velocity. I know he's working with a QB trainer right now that's doing a great job in developing quarterbacks. And Pickett, someone that has been consistent, and he kind of helps them, be a little bit dynamic. You may not like one particular trait about him that says it's elite, but you can see him having a long career in the NFL because of how he plays. He's a momentum guy, a rhythmic passer. And so he's someone that I don't think people aren't talking enough about in terms of him as a pro prospect. I think he's going to get to one of these all-star games, probably like the Shrine game at Vegas, and be able to really shine in that week of work down there, in Las Vegas.
Cannot wait to dive into more of these Power 5 conferences. We've obviously got the Big 10, the Big 8. We've got the Pac-12, the SEC, a lot more to get to. Should be awesome. Keep it going. These are great to go back and look at the other things we said as well. Terrific stuff. Check out Emory on social at FBall Game Plan. You can watch this show on YouTube, youtube.com/Ross Tucker NFL. Other than that, the keg is kicked. We are all tapped out.
Thanks for listening to the College Draft Podcast. Make sure to also subscribe to the Ross Tucker Football Podcast, Fantasy Feast, Even Money, and The Business of Sports. All available at Apple Podcasts, rosstucker.com, or wherever podcasts can be found.
A lot of times on the show, I mentioned DraftKings. Here's what you need to know. You got to be 21 or older, New Jersey, Indiana, or Pennsylvania only. New customers only. Restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details. Gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER, or in Indiana, 1-800-9-WITH-IT. By the way, if what I was talking about included a deposit bonus, doesn't always, sometimes it does. Deposit bonus requires 25 times playthrough, and deposit bonuses are paid out in site credit.